In today's video, I'm gonna show you how to wash, clay, buff, polish, and protect your paint. Now, I'm only doing the hood for time's sake, but this is applicable to the entire vehicle. Now, all the tools and products that I use will be linked down below in the description box, and this is my first time doing this style of video, so please let me know in the comment section what you think about it. Was it too boring? Was it too slow? Was it good? Was it too long? Please let me know, as I would appreciate your feedback. Let's go ahead and get started with this video. So first part is going to be washing the vehicle. There's actually pollen on here. There's a bit of debris on here. And in an ideal world, we would actually pressure wash it down, or at least use a garden hose. Let's say we don't have that luxury right here. So what we're going to do is actually use a pump sprayer to either so for instance, if you just have a spray bottle, you can either just to help you give more lubrication is you can first spray it down and just lubricate it a lot better. That way, when you go in with your rinseless wash solution, which is what we'll be using, it's just more lubricated, right? That's one method. The other method is using a pump sprayer. So the same thing is here. We have the Optimum No Rinse diluted as a clay lubricant, and we're gonna go ahead and spray it here. So this is another method of either just lubricating the surface, or you can use it as somewhat of a rinse and actually kind of use a bit more to rinse some of that pollen or debris down. Now the next phase, or the next thing you can do, is use a bigger pump sprayer. This is the IK Pro 12. We can definitely use more product to lay down, but it also gives us a lot more pressure. So now we can actually do this in a faster rate and kind of use it to rinse down some of the debris or pollen that might be on the vehicle. Again, you choose which one best fits you based on what you have available. So now going to the wash process is we're gonna do things a bit different. We're not gonna foam it down. We're not using a pressure washer. What we're actually gonna do is we're gonna do a rinseless, well, I guess you call it like a hybrid, because we still did pre-spray the panels. So I have a towel here, and what I'm gonna do is simply basically just do a rinseless wash. Now, an important thing to note here is, like, let's say your vehicle is actually a bit dirtier. Let's say it's much dirtier, right? But you're about to do a polish or a correction on the vehicle, okay? So one thing I'd like to encourage you or to think about is, do you have to go do the entire, foam down the vehicle, 2-bucket wash method, use multiple mitts or wash towels, when the very next step is we're gonna remove the swirls and scratches? So, let's say I do put a few more swirls into the paintwork because I'm not doing the full 9 yards. I'm still gonna remove all of those little swirls and scratches when I start polishing and correcting it. So I don't really see it as a big deal that I'm not like rinsing it off. And again, not everyone has the luxury of having access to a garage or to a driveway or to a pressure washer. Just depending on where you live, where you are, your zone, maybe you have a water restriction in your area. Some places simply aren't gonna have those luxuries, which is why I wanna do this in the very simplistic, in the simplistic manner, just to show you, okay, so you can get good results still while not having everything at your disposal. Okay, there, so I use one towel. Now, obviously, if you're doing the whole vehicle, you'd wanna switch sides as you go. So if, you're working this side and it gets caked up with dirt, you switch to the other side. Once that gets caked up, you switch to the other side. Once that gets caked up, you fold your towel yet again, and then continue to switch sides until the entire towel is filled with dirt, and then you discard it and pick up another towel. Now, here's the thing with this one, that I'm never gonna put this dirty towel back into this, into the wash solution bucket. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wring it out and put it in a different bucket. And let's say you have 7 towels in this bucket. You're gonna go and grab a new one, a fresh one, a clean one, and then continue to wash the panels. That's what we don't do. We don't do the 2-bucket wash method. We just have multiple wash towels in our wash bucket. Yes, in an ideal situation, you would want to at least rinse this down or dry it off before you go to the clean process, right? Because there still might be some pollen and debris in here. But let's say you just don't have that luxury. I'm gonna go straight into the clean phase. Now, typically, yes, for us, like for our customers' vehicles, 9 out of 10 times we do rinse down the vehicle. That way, when we start to clay, it's more like it's clean paint. But let's say you're on a time constraint. Let's say you just don't have the time. Let's say you just don't want to. I'm just gonna go straight into the claying process. Now I know other detailers that go straight from the wash to the clay. You know, nothing happens to the paintwork. What I'm trying to show you is that like you can venture off what's the right way to do things and not cause any damage and still get the job done. So I'm just going to rinse. I'm gonna clay primarily just the hood here because there's not much lighting on this side. There's not much contaminants on the hood. If there was contaminants, you would kind of hear like a gritty noise to it, almost like it was coarse, like there's grit on there, or like sandpaper. But here, there's not much going on. So I can kind of go a bit quicker because I'm not pulling off any contaminants. Now you can see that I'm gonna keep the surface lubricated by continually spraying the rinseless, the clay lube onto the surface. Because one thing you don't wanna do is try to clay your vehicle with the surface being dry. Because kind of think about it like those slip and slides where someone's running and they're about to slide on the slide. But if the surface isn't lubricated, once their stomach hits the plastic or the rubber or the vinyl, whatever it is, their stomach's just gonna catch and they're gonna kind of go forward, and it's like they're gonna stop dead on the tracks because there's too much friction, right? Which is why if you lubricate the surface, they're able to actually slide across the slip and slide. It's the same concept here. If you do it on a dry surface, the clay is just gonna catch. That's why you wanna continually spray your lubricant to keep things lubricated. Now, if you are working in direct sunlight, or if you pulled in the vehicle from outside and the panels are hot, you have to work a bit faster or in smaller sections because the weather will play a role into how you're able to work the product into the surface. So if you're outside in the sun, the panels are hot, and you're using a clay mitt, sometimes as you're claying, some of the clay will actually transfer over to the paintwork, and then you have to do an extra step later on to remove that. So if you really have to take into consideration the weather that you're working in. Even if you're in a shaded area, that's much better than just being outside in the straight heat. But here, pretty simple. We're in the shop. It's shaded. It's cool outside. I could do this whole vehicle without having to worry about the product drying because we're in favorable conditions. Okay, so next is we're just gonna dry it. Now, if this was a customer's vehicle or if we're doing the full prep, we would use the iron decon, except we would do that before the claying process. But because I'm just doing the hood, because I want to do that step and make it all stinking here, I'm not. But just goes to show you, like, we're gonna do this correction part. The results are gonna be great, and I'm gonna do that without doing the iron decontamination. But if you were to do that, if you want to do it, it's gonna be you wash the vehicle, if you want, rinse the vehicle down. You're gonna spray your iron decon, let it dwell, rinse it off, and then go into the claying process. It's not claying then iron, it's iron then clay. At least that's how we do it. Everyone has their own ways, but that's typically how most detailers do it. But in this situation, I'm just gonna dry it off. All right, so now the vehicle is technically washed, clayed, and prepped. I say vehicle, but we're just doing the hood right now. So now we can look inside the paintwork and see the condition that it's in. It's actually quite rough, not the worst by any means that we've seen, but it definitely needs a good amount of correction and polishing. Now, if you're working on your vehicle and it's your first time, you wanna see the type of, kind of the combination you need to run in order to get your desired results, right? On some vehicles, if the clear coat is soft, then you can get away with a less aggressive method in order to achieve somewhere of the results that you want. If you have a harder clear coat, you might need to go with a more aggressive method to just get subpar results, right? It just depends on how hard or soft your clear coat is, how much the condition that it's in as far as like how many swirls and scratches that you have, and then of course the desired results that you want. That's what we tell every customer that we work with. It's those three things: your clear coat, the condition that it's in, and then the results that you're looking for. So here we're gonna go with a two-step correction. We wanna remove a bunch of those swirls and scratches in the paintwork. I can tell that there is a lot of more deeper scratches in there that probably will require some level of either sanding or just a more focused area of correction. But other than that, though, it's gonna look fantastic. There's like already some etchings here. There's already some paint, some rock chips and stuff. So it's already a bit neglected, or at least it's kind of a few parts of the vehicle would definitely require more work or things that we just can't do. But nonetheless, we'll make it look much better. Let's move on to the actual correction. So very simple process here. Again, it depends on your setup, what you have, and you don't need exactly what I have. Do you need the G15 from Grid's Garage? No, a Harbor Freight polisher will work. Do you need this microfiber cutting disc from Meguiar's? No, whatever cutting compound pad you have will work. So here I do have the Griot's Garage G15. This is a 15 millimeter throw. It's a orbital polisher with, like I said, a Meguiar's 5-inch cutting disc. For choice of compound for today's correction is going to be the Oberk system. Do I claim any brand product is the best? No, it works for us. I like it. I like the brand. I like the logo and stuff, so that's about it. I can pull out literally any other combo that I have in our shelf there, from Griot's, from Malco, from Adams, from Meguiar's, and I can achieve the same result. So I'm not saying Oberk is the best. I'm just saying that's what we currently use. We have like 6 bottles of these just because it works. So when it comes to correction here, what we're going to do is we're going to open it up. First, make sure that the pad is lined up on the backing plate, and then we are going to put, what I do is I just kind of move the bottle. Like, I don't use my finger to spread it around. I just spread it around with the bottle itself just to give even coverage. I don't spend too much time. I don't overthink it. And then I'll just put like 2 dots right here, and now the pad is primed, because it's going to keep on getting spread on the pad once I tap it on the panels. The best thing to do is to first get a test spot going, and basically what a test spot is going to allow you to do is see what works and what doesn't. I already know what works on this vehicle, but for your vehicle you'd want to work a small section, and by small, if you want to tape it off just so you can see the difference more clearly, go for it. But for me, I'm not. So just to show you what that would look like, is I'm going to work the small section right here. So the point of the test spot is to see if it works or not. It's not to go through the whole panel. So you are going to work a relatively small section. So first I'm going to kind of dab it around. Then I'm going to set it on speed 2, and I'm just going to spread it around right here. That's it. It was just to spread it around. So now, and obviously, actually, when I'm actually moving in practice, in action, it's a lot more fluid, and you just keep on going. So now I'm going to up it up to speed 5, and the correction process will begin. I'm going to use slow arm movement, not like a molasses, but just steady arm movement. I'm going to put minimal down pressure down. The pad must remain flat on the surface. That's what's going to allow it to correct. And the pad must continue to rotate, right? So the pad has to stay flat, and it has to keep on rotating while using minimal down pressure, okay? Okay. So that was a crosshatch pattern, meaning I was going left, right, left, and then up, down, up, down. This was in a smaller section, so it wasn't much movement. But as you work a larger area, it would be left, right, left, right, left, right, up, down, up, down, up, down, and then I'll consider that one pass. So now let me get my towel here. This is an Adams Polishes towel, I believe. I'm just gonna wipe this down. And then I'm gonna have the cameraman here come in and see if he can get a shot here. Now on this specific paint, like even after the correction, there's still gonna be some kind of like actual damage in there, because I can see the scratches that I can actually feel. And the paint isn't like there's still some orange peel in here and such, so there's still gonna be limitations on what I can do. And again, like, could you always go start wet sanding with 3000 and pull out the rotary? Yeah, but to most people, like, even pulling out just 70% is going to make a big difference on most people's vehicles, and most customers that we've had here are more than thrilled with that. So that's why I try to keep things very, very practical and realistic. Like, I'm not one to be like, hey, pull out the wet sanding block, let's get after this. Like, dude, most people don't care about that. So here I would say most people would be happy with this. So now that's just the correction part. Later on we'll do the polishing phase, but I'm going to follow that same pattern along the entire vehicle, doing that crosshatch pattern. Now when you're polishing, you want to keep the heat in mind, because that's what people are scared of, is burning up the clear coat. So what you want to do is, that's why, like, you want to keep the polisher moving at all times. Like, you don't want it to just like sit there and just work on one specific area. Like, keep the polisher moving. That's what I say, use minimal down pressure, keep the pad rotating, and keep the polisher moving. Now as you're polishing, you literally just want to take your hand and just place it on the panel and see how hot it is. If it's getting, like, if you touch the panel and you're like, oh, that's kind of hot, stop working on that section, right? Go on somewhere else, or stop the polisher altogether, let it cool down, wipe it off, and inspect. Because you don't need to overwork it area where it's actually hot. So as you're working, just inspect it with your hand, see if it's hot. If it's not, keep on working it. If it's getting hot, either just move around it and work other areas, or just stop, let it cool down, inspect, and if it needs more work, go after it, but keeping in mind of not overheating the panel. So since I did a very, very small section, I'm not gonna use the air compressor to blow out the pad. I'm just gonna use this brush to pick up the fibers, because I basically didn't do anything. So now I'm gonna put another just 3 dots right there, because the pad is still saturated because I didn't do anything on this last pass. So now we're gonna do the actual correction, and I'll work a bigger section right here. Ideally, you like to work from the inside coming out, but I'm too short to reach that, so I'm gonna work this section first. So setting 2, I'm gonna just lower the volume here, but I'm setting 2, spread, and then increase the speed to 5, and then get to the correction. So tap, 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 2, and 5. And even from here, I don't know how it's getting picked up on the camera, but even from here, you can tell the difference in clarity from these angles. Sometimes it's a bit harder to catch on camera, but yes, there's still gonna be imperfection in there, but it is looking much, much better. And once you take it out to the sun and inspect it in person outside, you see the clear difference. I have an air compressor to blow out the pad, but assuming most people don't have an air compressor, I'm gonna spray my clay lube. There's one little spritz here. I'm gonna use this brush here to stand up the fibers. You can also turn it on, but I don't want to have to lower the volume. You can get the fibers up and clean it off like this, and then just get your towel here and just kind of rub it on the pad to clean it up a bit. And then you're gonna pull some of that off. Again, I have a blower air compressor right there, but most people aren't gonna have one. So I'm gonna put 3 dots yet again. Very simple, very straightforward. And then we're going to repeat that process. This time I'll just finish off the half of the hood, and we'll go from there. Feeling the paint here, it's a bit warm here because I was putting more down pressure right here, but overall it's not hot, but it is a bit warm, and it's okay for the paint to get a bit warm. Like it's to a degree, it's gonna heat up a bit because you are putting friction on the paint. You have the pad, you have the compound or polish, and then it's going in rotation on the panel, so it is gonna create heat. Don't get me wrong, but it's to the point where it's like if it's actually getting hot, that's a bit too much at that point. So again, same results that we got here. Now it's just doing that same thing along the entire paint. Now, if you are working on these more smaller areas here, if you have like a 3-inch polisher, that'd be great to fit it here. I can only imagine not everyone is gonna have a 3-inch or 1-inch polisher. So I'm gonna show you how it looks finessing the 5-inch pad on this section and this section. Yes, ideally a smaller polisher would be great because a 3-inch or 1-inch, fantastic. Would work wonders here, but if you don't have it, you can still get it done. If you're gonna work this little sliver right here, right? You're gonna put the pad, you don't wanna put it like this because you're gonna create this little gap in between right here, and it's gonna cause friction between the polisher. It's not gonna rotate because it's not equally distributed, the down pressure along the pad. So on this scenario, if you're trying to hit this little edge right here, you'd want to move the polisher to this side, and you wanna keep the pad flat on this side. This side of the polisher and pad, it's actually gonna stay raised, but this panel is gonna stay flat on the surface. So don't worry about the whole pad being flat on the surface. Focus on the pad being flat on the area that you're working on. So even if you come to this side here, and I'm working like, let's say all the way to this edge, maybe this side of the pad is gonna be off the panel, but the side that it's actually working on is gonna stay flat and it's gonna stay rotating. So where you're working, finesse the pad polisher to stay flat on the area that you're working on, not just the entire pad. Like the entire pad doesn't have to stay flat. So we're gonna follow the same principle, put it on 2 and spread, and then go up to 5 and spread and start working. so when you're working these smaller sections, be careful, and you definitely want to keep the pad moving here on the smaller section, just because, for instance, if you're working a larger area, the pad and the down pressure kind of dissipates faster because you're working a larger area, right? Whereas if you're putting this same amount of down pressure and pad rotation on a smaller area, it's going to heat up faster because it's in a much more specific area. So the smaller area or panel that you're working on, either use less pressure or keep the polisher moving, or don't keep the polisher on there as long, because you will create more heat in a more specific area versus working a larger area. So now we're going to wipe it off, and look at that, we're getting the same results. It is coming out fantastic. All right, so correction is knocked out and the results are still the same in some areas. So what you'll find is, like, it's not going to be a uniform result on the entire vehicle, because just, think about it, in some areas, someone brushes on the paint a little harder, or the other day someone set the boxes on this section, or that one time when you had a long night out and had one too many drinks and you kind of slid on the side of the hood and you didn't do it on the other side. So depending on the vehicle, some areas are going to come out better than others. But as a whole, as I'd like to say with our customers, like as a whole, we'll remove like 80% of the swirls and scratches from the paintwork. But on specific panels, some might be 90% removed, some might be 70% removed, right? But as like holistically, the vehicle, it's around 80% removal. And that's just if you're doing this as a business, as we are here. So now we're going to go to the polishing phase. We're going to use Oberk's polish. Shake out the bottle, and we're going to do the same thing that we did with the microfiber cutting pad, and that's just kind of slightly prime it. I don't overthink this, just use the bottle and spread it around, and then just do a little dust right here. Now the way this is going to work is, I have a little booster seat right here, so we're going to still do the it's the same concept as far as the crosshatch pattern. It's just, you're not going to be removing heavy defects on this phase. You're primarily refining the micro marring or scratching that you put in place with the compounding, right? Because that in essence is scratching up the surface just in a finer way. So we're more here refining the paint. We're not necessarily removing defects at this point. That's why we did the two-step correction, so that the correction step is the one removing the defects, and here with the polish, it's just refining the paintwork. So this is where the real clarity is going to pop out. Again, not defect removal, just more clarity. So we're going to spread it around right here. No need for a test spot because we're just polishing at this point. It's going to be much less abrasive, so it's not aggressive anymore. You don't need to put that much down pressure, like put less down pressure than what you did on the cutting. You can move, your arm movement can be a bit faster, and you can I'll have like around 4.5, not 5 anymore, just because again, we're not cutting or doing defect removal. So spread it around. You can still do you can still start it on 2, spread it, and then up it up to 4. So it'll look like this. So it's on 2. So here it's gonna come out very easy. Like if I swipe my hand on it, it's very, very, very just, it's super smooth, like it's coming off like butter. So removing it is super easy. You shouldn't have it like super caked on or dry. Again, if you're working outside, it might be slightly different. But this one shouldn't take nowhere near as long as the correction because it's just gliding over the paintwork. It's super easy to remove. And again, you're just refining the clarity. Now, if you are in your garage and you don't have perfect lighting, you might not see the best results. Meaning, if you want to see like the true, before and after, you want to take it out in the sun. And that being said, like sometimes you might have some holograms or micro marring, and you won't see that until you pull out in the sun work. It just really depends. I mean, there's been plenty of times where we think we're finishing up a customer's vehicle, and we take it out to the sun to inspect it, and then lo and behold, there's still a bunch of like holograms or like micro scratches in the paintwork that wasn't shown with our lights, but when you take it out to the sun, it shows everything. So that could be a possibility. which is why, you know, lighting is very important when it comes to correction and inspecting the paintwork. So let's continue with the polishing. Okay, so the paint is complete. It is looking much better. Again, there's still plenty of defects in the paintwork, but overall it is a major difference. Now, if you apply this difference across the entire vehicle, it's gonna look 10 times, 100 times better than what it came in. So now we have to seal the paints. That's adding some, applying some form of protection. We have to paint prep the vehicle to remove any polish residue that's on the vehicle. So I'm gonna do, and that's just to make sure that the sealant or the coating or whatever you're using is actually adhering to the paint and it's not getting mixed in with the residue, the polish residue. So we have a grease and wax remover right here. We buy this locally, and I'm gonna spray. You want to spray a good amount because you actually want to remove all those polishes on there. So we're going to just work that into the paintwork and get all of it off. Now the other thing that this will do is, like, if you're going to take it out to the sun, it's best that you do this first. That way, when you inspect the vehicle outside in the sun, you're seeing the true condition, because sometimes some of the polish might hide a bit of the swirls or scratches, or depending on what compound that you're using, it might have some fillers in there, and that might kind of just hide the imperfections. It might actually hide some of the just some of the things that you may want to go over if you don't do the paint prep. So it's good to do this before you inspect outside. But is that like a hard rule to follow? No, we go plenty of times we inspect the paintwork without actually doing this. So this is probably more of a do as I say, not as I do. This is actually an ultra fine polishing pad. You'd want one that doesn't have any type of cutting abilities, but since the other ones are kind of dirty right now, I'm just gonna use this to apply it, which shouldn't be a problem. Wow, this is a big opening. This is Sealant Squeal by Lithium. So I'm just gonna, there's actually a hair right here. So this part is pretty straightforward. You don't need to saturate the pad or anything. Okay, I'm gonna use the battery powered polisher now. We're gonna spread it around. It looks very messy right now, and I'm gonna put it on setting 1. You don't need a high speed. You're not cutting anything. You're not removing any abrasives, or you're not refining the clarity. You're just spreading the sealants or wax, whatever you're using, onto the paintwork. So, you know, you can move, your arm movement doesn't have to be slow. You can move kind of fast. It's just getting an even coverage on the paintwork. And you can work some pretty large surfaces because, again, we're not correcting it. We're just literally spreading the product around. So if that's the case, then we can work very large sections. And it is now protected. If you want to read the label and see how long to wait for it to cure, if there is a curing phase, we'll wait a few minutes and then we'll buff it off. Again, if you're like in the sun or outside, or if it starts raining on you, you're gonna have to buff it off. If it's super hot outside, you know, you don't want to let it sit there too long to where it dries out. So again, the weather, the outside elements will affect how you go about correcting, polishing, and protecting your vehicle. But here, I'll wait like 3 minutes and then I'll buff it off. And the paint is coming off flawlessly, absolutely no problem whatsoever. And it's gonna look fantastic. And there we go, we are done with the hood. As you can see, it is a great before and after. It's looking 100 times better. Yes, it's not perfect, but it is looking significantly better. I'll have all the links to the tools and products that we used down in the video description box. If you like this video, at least give it a like, please, because we almost spent 2 hours filming this video, and it turned out to be like a 12-minute video. So we put a little bit of effort into these videos. So just at least leave a like. And if you have any comments, questions, or concerns about anything on this video, you can also leave that in the comment section down below. If you are looking to start your detailing business, you can find some business guides down in the description box. Thank you very much. I will see everyone on the next one. Bye-bye.